Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, presented and brought to you by FanDuel. We appreciate you being here as we are going to go over our performance tiers for Big Ten football in Week 12. What did the teams look like? How did they perform? We're going to get into it all as I have the graphic here next to me on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast, please still 5-star rating and review really helps us out. If you're here on YouTube, you're getting a sneak peek before we go through it, but please do like, subscribe, and listen in for the analysis. Okay, so I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. I've kind of gone game by game in the past, but I feel like that I already go game by game in the Sunday night recap, the Monday morning podcast for that. And so I feel like it's kind of a little bit redundant. So instead, I want to go tier by tier in this one. And then in the performance tiers, I have elite, satisfied, questionable, concerning, and awful. Now, much more on the awful and concerning part this week than what we've normally seen. But overall, very good play for Big Ten football this week. There was a lot of really good things that happened. More elites than awful, but still had some awfuls, and we're going to get into that. So our top four, they are all in the elite category. We have Washington, Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State. Only one that was a little questionable here was Indiana because they were at a bit of a tight one at halftime against Wisconsin. There it was 10-7, but that was kind of a fluke touchdown that Wisconsin got. I mean, I'm not going to say they didn't deserve it or anything like that. Obviously, it was a good score and a good pass by Carter Smith. But overall, I didn't feel like Indiana was ever in danger of losing that one. And honestly, this is the way I predicted it would happen. I told everybody in the preview, I said, look, Indiana's probably going to struggle a little bit in the first half. And it's not going to be because Indiana's bad. It's going to be because Wisconsin's defense just always comes out, stops the run really well in the first half. And then eventually they begin to fade because the offense just is able to kind of turn it on. Wisconsin doesn't have the most depth in the world, especially right now with injuries. And so Indiana in the second half really took advantage of things and was able to win this one 31-7. Fernando Mendoza on the day, 90+% completion percentage, 22 of 24. 299 yards and 4 touchdown passes. He broke the Indiana record for touchdown passes in a season. They only have one game left in the regular season, and then, of course, the postseason after that, where Indiana will very likely be in the Big Ten championship game and in the playoffs, is almost a certain lock at this point. So Indiana, although a little bit of a slow first half, got a couple drives stalled out there, turned it on in the second half, and Fernando Mendoza is your Heisman leader, according to FanDuel, as he is plus 100 as of this morning. He was negative last night when we were talking about this, but as of this morning, he is plus 100. Julian Sand right behind him at plus 200. All right, so let's get to Washington. They blew out Purdue. What was it, 48-13? I think it was 49-13. Excuse me. Good game here by Washington. Adam Muhammad was the one running back there. Damon Williams was fantastic at home once again. I mean, this team has gone from elite to awful to elite to awful. Well, I guess it's the other way around. They went awful to elite, because that's just what this team is, difference on the road versus at home. And now there was a lot about the Wisconsin game last week that was a favorable matchup for them. Jonah Coleman going down definitely didn't help, but still, this Washington team came out and they just absolutely obliterated Purdue. There wasn't anything that Purdue was going to be able to do in this one, but Jordan Washington was actually your leading rusher. He had 5 carries for 108 yards and 1 touchdown, and this dude has speed for real. I mean, this guy is crazy fast. He showed it on his big long run when he was able to get by everybody. And it's not just because Purdue is slow or anything like that. He's just that fast. I mean, he was able to outrun pretty much anybody on that field. He is just a super fast dude, and I can't wait to see Jordan Washington and what he can do moving forward. I mean, this is still a young Washington team. They're going to get better at winning on the road. I know, it doesn't always feel that way, but USC has struggled on the road in their past, and they've gotten better. They won at Nebraska. They won at Purdue. They just need to keep improving, and I think Washington will continue to do the same. They've already improved this season, winning at Maryland, so we'll see. And then Oregon, Ohio State. I mean, Oregon did exactly what they're supposed to do. They got Kenyon Sadiq and Johnson on the linebackers of Minnesota, and it was lights out from there. You don't really need Gary Bryant Jr. and DeCorin Moore when your tight ends are just more athletic than everybody on Minnesota's defense, other than maybe Coy Parrish, but just insane athleticism from those guys being able to move the ball down the field and able to win that one at 42-13 for Oregon. So great game from them there. And then Ohio State in the elite category, they deserve it. I mean, 48-10 for them. Julian Sain did not have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate for the majority of the game. Jeremiah Smith did play like the first 3 drives, I think it was, and then he came out. Definitely some injury stuff to monitor there with him. But the Ohio State defense, they faced Luke Duncan, the backup quarterback for UCLA, and they eventually moved the ball a little bit, once the starters and things were out, like very end of the third quarter. I think that touchdown for UCLA came with like 10-20 seconds left in the third quarter. And then the fourth quarter, Ryan Day was just doing everything he could in the second half to try and get Julian Sain comfortable with those wide receivers. I suppose in case Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate do miss some more time, we'll see. I don't expect to see them next week against Rutgers, but I do expect to see them against Michigan, unless something, some new developments come out. Of course, we'll have that covered here on the Big Ten Huddle if anything like that happens. So go ahead and like and subscribe here at the Big Ten Huddle and also on the podcast as well. You can always find some shorter content and stuff like that on YouTube. So if you're on podcast, make sure you're going and subscribing to the YouTube as well, as we do put out more content on the YouTube as well. So, all right. In the satisfied category, you had Illinois, Penn State, and USC. And USC has an argument to be in the elite category. The only reason I didn't put them into the elite category was because of that first half, 21-10. Excuse me. I would just seem to kind of do whatever they wanted on offense in that one. USC did not have a single tackle for loss in this game. However, they did hold Iowa in the second half to 0 points. So it wasn't necessarily bad play from USC. It just wasn't elite play throughout. And you could say the same thing about Indiana a little bit. And maybe you can make that argument that Indiana should be down there because of the quality of opponent that they played versus the quality of opponent that USC played. So I definitely understand if a USC fan is going to be in the comment section, which, by the way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Would love to hear from you guys. If a USC fan is in the comment section saying we played elite, I'm not going to argue with you too much. I went with the safe choice here with satisfied, but honestly, I could put USC in the elite category. Iowa had a chance late in that game. I know there was some argument about the toe tap and everything. And I mean, like after what Oregon got with one of their touchdowns in their game against Minnesota, feels like all you need is that toe just barely in there. But of course, Iowa did not get the benefit of the doubt there. So tough stuff there for Iowa. But my response is you should have scored at some other point in the second half there. You can't not score it all in the second half and then just be like, wow, that one time screwed us. Sorry, Iowa. We'll talk more about you here in a minute. Penn State and Illinois in there as well. Penn State come back from being down early against Michigan State. I believe it was the first play of the game. Todd Tolliver was able to get a touchdown, and then Illinois, Maryland was able to score first in that one, but then Illinois, they just go on a run and take care of business and then run out the game at the end of it. They're not trying to do too much. They're not trying to get their guys injured because they do know they are still chasing that 10-win season. And Northwestern looks like a team that is going to be a formidable opponent for them at the end of the season, as I did have Michigan and Northwestern. They faced off against each other in the questionable category, and both of them for different reasons. So Michigan, 5 turnovers in this game. They still won, even with 2 missed field goals from Dominic Zavada. So if you would have told me before the game that Michigan was going to turn the ball over 5 times and have 2 missed field goals, I would have said, yeah, it's unlikely that Michigan wins that game. But at the same time, I predicted that Michigan would win this one 24-21 by just a field goal, and I didn't necessarily think it would be a game-winning field goal. Michigan does win 24-22, so it's just 1 point off. I didn't necessarily think it'd be a game-winning field goal. And honestly, it looked like my prediction wasn't all that great until Bryce Underwood threw 2 interceptions at the end of the game. Listen, Bryce Underwood is a true freshman quarterback. He has all the talent in the world. He is somebody who, if he gets the right coaching, he could throw the ball like CJ Stroud and run the ball like Cam Newton. That's a shout out to my guy, Chris, the Penn State guy, for some of his analysis of Bryce Underwood. But based off of, kind of the intangibles, he can get there. He just has to have the coaching to get there. And we'll see how he continues to develop throughout his career. But right now, Bryce Underwood, he just needs to rein it in a little bit, kind of play within himself, play within the offense. Andrew Marsh had a ton of receiving yards in this one. He had 189 receiving yards. Bryce Underwood's 280 passing yards in this one. So, I mean, Andrew Marsh, he is the number one receiver for this Michigan team. He's really developed into that for them. I think you would rather Donovan McCauley be the number one wide receiver and Marsh be your number two, because I don't think Marsh is ready to be the number one guy yet, but it's hard to argue with results. 12 receptions, 189 yards. Over half of Bryce Underwood's completions went to Andrew Marsh in this one. So that's a connection that obviously right now, two true freshmen can be a little concerning, but in the future, it's going to pay dividends. It's going to pay off. Bryce Underwood and Andrew Marsh in 2 years, maybe next year, are going to be an absolutely elite duo between the two of them as they continue to develop. All right. In Northwestern, you have to be better late game in those situations. They had an opportunity with the ball to kind of close out the game. They weren't able to do it. Michigan's defensive line dominated their offensive line the entire game. Northwestern had opportunities to score in the red zone, multiple batted down balls, multiple pass breakups by the Michigan defensive line. And it's just not good enough for Northwestern. Look, they're a team that if you give them time to hang around, they will hang around, and definitely had some opportunistic plays with the turnovers and stuff. But overall, you have to win that game if you're Northwestern. You're technically at home at Wrigley Field. You're coming in against a ranked opponent. This is kind of your time to make a staple win. We'll see what David Braun could do in the season, but that's definitely a disappointing performance there. I'm just going to say it's questionable, not necessarily concerning, because Northwestern did almost have the win, but definitely something to pay attention to moving forward for Northwestern. All right. In the concerning category, I already talked about most of these teams a little bit: Michigan State, Wisconsin, Maryland, and Iowa. Iowa, kind of what I talked about, 0 points in the second half. That's a concerning thing for me. And, this team is 6-4 at this point. And while I do think they are better than that record, I do think that they are a team who should be, ranked. But this is also a team that lost to Iowa State early on in the season. This is also a team that honestly had the win against Oregon. They could have, if their defense would have stopped them. And honestly, in this one, I did feel like Iowa did play pretty well on defense. It's just USC played better. So when your offense just is not going to be able to score any points in the second half, and that's when you really need them to, it's really concerning for this Iowa team. Mark Gronowski has been very good this season, but then he also has times where he's just not so good. And for me, for Iowa, looks like they're going to be an 8-win team this season. Might be a 7-win team. We'll have to see what happens with Nebraska at the end of the season. But overall, this Iowa team, they were ranked number 21 in the nation. USC is going to get some credit, but they're not going to, or when people do the record counting stuff, they're not going to get credit very much for beating a 6-4 team, which is stupid. People don't actually take into account how good teams are. They just look at the record, which that's fine, I guess. I do that sometimes too, but I think I do it when it's the most justified, personally. Maryland, Wisconsin, Michigan State. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Maryland, just no offense today, multiple sacks on Malik Washington, inability to run the ball. Wisconsin, same story on offense, the same story on defense. The second half, the defense started to fade away. They were tired. Indiana started to, make things happen. And it's just a waste of an excellent defense. I mean, Wisconsin right now has an excellent defense, even with injuries, Allegra and guys like that. This is still an excellent defense from Wisconsin. It's just a waste right now. And honestly, it's just kind of sad. Michigan State, I mean, how does Jonathan Smith keep his job after this, other than the fact that there's just so many head coaching openings out there already? Maybe that's how he keeps his job, but just not a great performance by Michigan State, who started Alessio Milovic again in this one. And I can't say a whole lot of great stuff about Michigan State right now. They look like they're lost under Jonathan Smith, and Jonathan Smith looks like he's lost with what to do with his roster. And then finally, UCLA, Purdue, and Minnesota, all in the awful category. Not much really to say there. UCLA started Luke Duncan. Purdue had Malachi Singleton out there. Minnesota had Drake Lindsay, and they were just basically out-athleted the entire game. there's not really much you can do there. Minnesota, PJ Fleck gave a whole lot of credit to Oregon at the end, which is nice. Good to hear, and definitely love when coaches can kind of swallow their pride and do that in the post game. But overall, Minnesota is not an awful team. And please don't hear these performance tiers as saying like Washington's elite and Minnesota's awful. They're not an awful team. It's just Minnesota does not match up well with these teams like Oregon and Ohio State, where they just get out athleted the entire time. And obviously Iowa, they didn't match up very well in that game either. But this Minnesota team still has 7, maybe even 8 wins in them here to end the season. We'll see what they can do. But right now, not a great game to come off of. We'll see how they respond next week. All right, those are the performance tiers for Week 12 in the Big Ten. Let me know your thoughts, comment below, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.